Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock, so if nothing else, we'll at least get started on time. We'll see where we go from there. If you don't mind, I would offer an invocation, and then when we stand, Mr. Ritter, we'll ask you to kind of stand to the side and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance when it's that time, all right? So let's begin with the invocation. Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this day, and we're thankful to be together as a committee and as a community. And we ask thee to please bless us that this will be productive, that we will not have contention, but we will have ideas and thoughts and come to the best conclusions with thy help. We love thee and ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, one of the things we did last time is we elected Andrea Campbell to be the chairman, and she's not going to be here today. I think I am co-chair, and so I will also say my job is not to be a part of the committee. We're here to answer questions. We've got Bill Dees and we've got John Ortworth, who are part of the board. We can help answer questions, but really we want you guys to run with it. First of all, can I ask that we go around and introduce the people that were not here last time?
Jay Ritter.
And who are you with, and what is your interest here?
General Mills. I am the facilities manager. Interested in how this impacts the plant.
Fantastic.
Tom Lennon, retired Continental Cement Company.
Very good.
Make sure you turn your mic on.
You can just leave them on, it's okay.
Hit them so there's a green light flashing. With the green light flashing, it'll pick it up.
Derwin Conley, unaffiliated, Hannibal Realty, but no agenda, just citizen. That's it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. All right. Some talking points have been taken and given out to the committee. And what I'd like to do is just kind of start with the first thing up is talking about the methodology. It was kind of gone over before, and I'd ask that we kind of do a roundtable starting either here or here, where you thought, what you recommend, and what you don't recommend, and then we'll just kind of go around and invite everybody to share what they've got and what those interests. Where are you thinking?
All right. So on the survey that we all did, there was a lot of different options there. Gross area, impervious area. When I went through it the last time, I was talking to several of the people who have big subdivisions and everything else, and the impervious area tax seems like a fair way to tax this thing, because at 5 acres on a large lot, that is a pretty large amount of money on that. So I was pretty much in favor of only the impervious area. The exempt properties, if they are a 501c3 and they are exempt from that, then we might have a little pushback on them. Although I understand that the tax has to happen and we have to get stormwater. I mean, I'm over here in Oakwood and I have almost zero stormwater in my area. So it's going to be an uphill battle with those gross area acreage, but I believe the impervious area is my best option there.
Yes, sir.
Kind of leaning towards that as well, as far as what I've read and kept up with and things like that. Concerns, though, representing General Mills, that's a large area for us. When you look at parking lots, truck lots, roof lines, and things like that. And similar to the previous gentleman's comments around wastewater, or stormwater, stormwater side of it, all of ours goes to Bear Creek. So I understand that something's got to be done, support that something needs to be done, just concerned about how that impacts the plant.
Mr. Lennon.
Well, after looking at the survey of Western Kentucky did over the United States and Canada, and what I see here, and the fairness to most people would be impervious area. I think tends to be what the watershed would be from. And so why do we, tax land that's actually absorbing the water? That's would be where I would tend to be very strongly with the impervious area.
Mr. Craig?
Hi. For those that weren't here last time, I'm Larry Craig, retired military, retired chamber director, and gave up another title last Monday, but that's okay. We won't talk about that. Impervious is the way I'm leaning. I'm a little confused when I see impervious and talking about maximum 500 square feet. I don't know if that's 500 square feet of,
Minimum, wasn't it?
was it minimum?
Minimum.
Yeah,
Okay.
minimum fee.
But, yeah,
It could be
500 square
smaller,
feet of
but-
what?
Yeah, minimum of impervious area.
The gross acreage, I'm less like, I would like to make a statement, hasn't been made yet. Per parcel, forget it. It will
Amen.
never
Yes.
happen. If we recommend a per parcel, it will never happen. We've got to look at something that is reasonable and affordable, but will help accomplish what's intended to be accomplished. You mentioned, Colin, about 501c3 and tax exempt. Now, this is a utility. Water, sewer, and power are utilities. Deal with it.
Yep.
But when I look at those areas, or General Mills, these massive areas, the shopping center, if I see areas that have retention ponds, catching that water coming off of parking lots, I think they ought to be given credit for that. It's not going it's going in the ground. Or if it's draining off at a much slower rate than it would if it was just running off of the parking lot. A lot of our new properties, well, for example, the new shopping center up there's got a retention pond over there by the car wash that catches water coming off that parking lot. And I will yield to Carl and Lisa on their new development, but I thought, and maybe Colin knows, I thought that city ordinances require, the new ordinances on new development requires retention ponds, which will catch water and therefore not get into the stormwater system. And if properties have retention ponds, or developments have retention ponds, and I'm just throwing this out on the table, I think we ought to think about giving them some kind of credit rather than the massive square feet or whatever. So I throw that out there for you to think about as we continue our deliberations. I know we need, I believe, about $4 million annually eventually. The other thing, a point I would make in reviewing things is we need to get, first of all, we need to get started. We need to get something, and we need to get started. I'm not so sure about sunset. That can be hairy. But I am, we start out with an amount and we build a plan off of that. And you all are smart enough to know that labor and materials is not going to stay at the same price. It's going to constantly go up. We've been experiencing that through the COVID and it's gonna continue to go up. So, at some point in time, we may have to go back to the voters or have a system where we adjust for inflationary costs. But we also need to consider that it shouldn't be an open-ended, no-holds-barred type thing. My thinking would be have a 10-year plan, and then if we don't have enough money to finish up what we do, then we justify what we've done, and we go back to the voters for an increase in the funding process. I've talked long enough.
Okay. I think we should consider other funding sources too. I know you kind of said on these three, but I always thought it ought to be done through property tax and through real property tax. The cars and vehicles drive down the streets, they use the storm sewers. That's the purpose of them. That's all the purpose. And possibly even if you increase a franchise fee, which nobody wants on utilities, then everybody would be taxed through a franchise fee. Not non-for-profits would still have to pay that fee. And that'd be another source of income that come in, not just impervious, let's say. As far as I know right now, this is not a utility, stormwater. Is that correct?
It will be. That's what.
If we vote on it, if the people vote on it.
If the people vote on it, it will
Okay,
become a.
that's my understanding. It's
utility.
not, right now, it's not a utility.
According to DNR, it's a utility, which is
Oh,
why
it
they're
is.
starting to breathe down our neck about getting something done.
Okay,
According to the Supreme Court, you cannot issue a user's fee because you can't meter it.
right.
But they didn't say anything about it not being a utility. So in my mind, somebody should challenge that, but those pockets would need to be deeper than mine.
Yeah, well, I just know the last time the city tried to implement a utility without a vote of the people, ended up in the board paying several $1,000s to Waste Management to take care of it because the courts found it illegal, creating a utility without the vote of the people of Hannibal. That's been a while back, but that's what happened. I didn't know how this become a utility without the vote of the people.
Much of that came because the city council gave us the responsibility for that stormwater. Yeah, a side note, sorry to interrupt, keep your thought, I apologize. You have in front of you a resolution and policy, this is a board policy. It was approved by the city, the July 19th meeting, 2022. And this does that delineation of what is our responsibility, what is city responsibility. So someone had asked, what was that? What was the delineation? This helps create that delineation. Again, everything below ground is ours, above ground is theirs. And so this part of that, it is our responsibility to create this utility. Now, we've also spent money that we'd already borrowed from the electric department. We can no longer do that. And so we do have a stormwater utility.
Okay, the city council did the same thing when they started the recycling utilities.
Yeah, yeah.
They sent out a little letter saying the board's responsible for it. The board ended up paying excess of a couple $100,000 to pay off Waste Management's contract. So that's where that ended up last time. As far as the separation between above and below ground, the board has been maintaining the Bear Creek Dam for eons now, which is above ground in the stormwater district. And it's been paid probably out of sewer fund, basically.
Probably, yes.
Okay, and that's one place that the board's already been above ground expenses.
Yes.
I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
And at one time, the city council also wanted the board to clean out Bear Creek, dredge it.
Again, we've got to fund this.
Yeah, I know, this is just
Yeah.
negative talk, I know, and we don't want to go there, but I'm just showing you things that have happened and how you can call it a utility without the vote of people. Apparently DNR says it is, but,
Okay.
it didn't win the last time in court.
Okay.
But I think we'll look at other funding, but I know it's kind of late in the game to do that. Getting back to my original point, through property and real property and personal property and possibly franchise fees. through a franchise fee to the city, then we're contracting the board out to do the work, would create every utility user to pay. Nobody be exempt from it.
Bill, could I ask a question? And I'm following your chain of thought. Are you suggesting real estate tax or personal property tax?
Both.
Clear that up in my mind.
Okay.
What are you
What I'm,
suggesting?
a valuation of property, just like the city, somewhere around $1.20 per, okay. They charge $1.20, let's say, I think if mine come to $1.17 when I figured it out, but it's a per 100 evaluation.
Okay.
Evaluation of your property, you pay so many dollars per evaluation.
Per 100.
Per 100
Or
is
per
how it
1,000.
usually works.
Yeah.
They usually, well, they value, you should have several $1,000s worth of valuation, but it's per 100, I think, is how it's actually broke down.
So are you suggesting that's one of the options?
Yes,
should
that we
consider?
create, I don't know, even $1 would be cheaper for me, the same as the city's charging for property tax and real property.
Okay.
But there, if I may, there are institutions in the city limits that do pay no property tax.
Right, property tax are not, they will be exempt from. Franchise fees, they are not exempt from. That's the reason I offer maybe a combination of the two utilities. I know it's confusing and it would be, you'd have to get numbers together to see where it'd be at, to create what kind of budget you'd want from it. But that's just my thought, different than maybe than.
So the real tax that you're talking about, real property tax, $1 per 100. is your
I don't even know.
That's on cars, boats,
Cars is-
campers.
Real
What?
property is your property, personal property is cars, boats, trailers.
Okay.
There'd be
So-
two different ones of it, just like you pay now, like school taxes on both of them.
Right.
Are
Okay.
you
You
suggesting,
have, real property is a valuation of your property, your home and your property.
Okay.
Personal property is a valuation of your boats, your cars, and SUVs, or whatever you have.
Okay.
then you're suggesting both of those be considered?
Yes,
And maybe a combination of
right.
any one of those?
Possibility, combination of all. I'm just saying that real property is on vehicles, which drives down the streets, which use the storm sewers. If it wasn't for a street, you wouldn't have a storm sewer. We've been in the habit in this town of building our streets on top of creeks. You know,
Yep.
Well, that's
do.
true.
So we-
Several of those in my neighborhood.
We'll look into that. Probably I'll talk to legal about that first. and see what the
Yeah,
options are.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a
Okay,
possibility.
we will explore that.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I'm going to defer. Obviously, I missed the last meeting, so I'm trying to get caught up on everything. I don't want to rehash what everything's been talked about, so I'm going to learn more by listening today than by speaking, so.
Thank you.
Well, maybe it'd be helpful to you. There is a way you can catch up to that missed meeting.
I looked at, I thought the
It
meeting
was-
was set like 2 weeks from today.
It was put online and everything.
And when I finally went today, yesterday and opened emails, I was like, that meeting is tomorrow. Okay, because I was thinking it's supposed to be in June sometime, so literally, I'm sitting down trying to pull it up, and I could not find it. Eventually talked to one of your employees out here.
And there is paper slides,
Yeah,
and I think there's a video in there.
yeah, I saw
of
the video,
meeting, and then you get yourself the paper slides,
yeah.
Yeah.
and then go along with that and
Got
take
it.
notes, because I wished
It's a
I
lot.
had that packet of slides when we started that meeting.
When
And
she
see,
was
and that's-
talking.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why,
We
like I
could
said,
have taken notes
100
while
some pages
talking
in
was
that first
going on.
outlet.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of
and it was
information.
going
My
through it.
apologies.
going through and looking at it all, I
Not
thought, you know
throwing
what,
fingers.
I'm gonna
You're
come to the
okay.
meeting, listen, and then jump on everything, so.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Larry. I think the per parcel shouldn't even be considered. And also, if you have stormwater retention basins and even General Mills, Bear Creek's a natural creek. And for their water to go in there, they're not hurting anything. So they should have some kind of a break maybe, because it's going where it naturally would have gone if General Mills wasn't even there. So I think they need to, you need to look at all of those kind of little situations. That either it's a less amount or they're exempt or somehow to
I
be
think
fair.
what I'm saying, and I hope you're saying, that in the ballot issue needs to have language that talks about exceptions or credits or something like that, such as retention bases or direct drainage into an existing
Or brand new stormwater
creek.
system, like in our subdivisions, brand new. It shouldn't
Well,
need to be maintained for a while.
just a personal opinion, but General Mills dumping directly into Bear Creek really is not an advantage, because if you follow Bear Creek downstream, it goes all the way through Oakwood, roads cross it several times. It floods the dog park, it floods Sedalis, it floods a lot of stuff. So technically, General Mills contributes to all of that when we have a large rain
Well,
event.
and if you don't shut the floodgates,
Right, it's
also,
controlled to a
it
degree.
should be
with their
controlled a
gates.
little sooner than it is.
Yeah.
We live out right across
We-
from
yeah.
the dam,
The dam
and
part, yeah.
they need to back it up occasionally, so it's not flooding Oakwood and Sedalis and all of those.
Well, I think by that point, the gates
do.
are irrelevant.
They shut the gates in time.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
They got it usually set at a foot. Most of the times when you come into rainy seasons, the flow of water below the Bear Creek Dam is enough to flood the whole of that area. From your creek coming down Route O.
Well, then General Mills isn't contributing to it.
Well, they are. They contribute in that area because they're below Bear Creek Dam.
But all of Oakwood is too.
Yes,
You know. I
that's
mean,
true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That area can flood with the gates shut. Matter of fact, this whole area flooded one year when I was working here. They had to shut down the Oakwood sub because of high water.
Well, then, I am 100% behind the impervious area method of charging this fee. I also think, along with exemptions or reductions, should include those who happen to live in the city limits but have absolutely no city utilities. There are several people in my neighborhood that would pertain to, and probably feel the same as I. But I think that would be one of the fair things to consider.
I ask you, but who doesn't have city utilities in the city?
Me.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, on the barren property, I understand. If that's what you're
Our
talking
house,
is there.
no, our home.
We have a sewer, we have a deep well, which we put in when we bought the property. Our
We have Rolls
electricity,
County
Rolls
Electric.
County Electric Co-op. Yeah.
They annexed.
We
Yeah.
built out there for the beauty of it being out of the city limits, and then several years ago, it was gerrymandered around so that something could happen
At the
that
hospital.
never
Yes.
happened. What was that? There wasn't
They-
there a
they
Spartan,
wanted to go
something was going
They
out?
wanted to do sewer.
There was something, yeah,
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
They wanted to get sewer out to
Between
the
the
hospital.
hospital and
Well,
then out.
I think that's what, they
W,
were
like
bringing
Lower Road
diemakers
and
in the
stuff.
hospital.
That's what it was. Dye Makers was gonna
Yep.
be,
Yeah, they were bringing diemakers' property and the hospital into the city
And so, yeah, then they needed things
and
touching
providing,
that.
right.
and providing utilities. And then they brought
And then,
the, some of the utilities across, Chester Ross's property up along
And-
36
The,
to get to the hospital.
I think
Yeah.
the sewer.
All right, well, those things happen, they happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Bob, let's get back to you.
I'm looking at impervious area as being my preferred choice, so there's several issues the village has brought to it, on alternate payment methods, which I think need to be explored a little bit. And also Larry's comment on retention ponds, I think there ought to be an incentive, for some of these companies that don't have retention ponds to go ahead and revamp their system. That would give them the incentive to cut down on their cost if they put the retention ponds in. There's no, I don't believe of any retention pond anywhere in this industrial area here. Golden Eagle just did their large expansion. They put in a very sizable retention pond that is required in city ordinances now. So it's something that could be considered if we get into that. But basically, impervious areas would be my first choice. It also gets the biggest number of voters it can be satisfying to the biggest number of voters to know what the alternatives would have cost them. This basically is the lowest level per property, per house property, of any of the things that we've put on the table so far. And we got to get those voters out to say something. And if you put something like the last proposal that the council was kind enough to set aside, that would have just killed a ton of votes there. With the
So the first, impervious the first time failed by 12 votes.
12 votes, yeah. The interesting,
But it's an education process.
one of the interesting things, the areas that were least impacted by the stormwater situation basically approved the proposal. The areas that have the most effect of the stormwater with the sewers and everything else were the ones that voted it down.
Education process.
Yeah.
That's me, huh? I'm up now. All right. Well, I ran some numbers. And to accept the impervious, which I'll admit is the cheapest version of the three, to accept it the way it's written now, my property taxes would increase by, if I calculated my extra lot right, probably $140 a year. Which to me is
Your
no,
property tax or your utility? Your utility tax.
This tax.
Just a
this is
stormwater.
tax,
This
the
tax.
stormwater tax.
If we were more
which
the
would be the
impervious area.
first, yeah. So, which for me is neither here nor there, because my house is paid for. But somebody like my daughter, who would increase her taxes every year between $80 and $90, is like, doing what I used to do, stuffing money in an envelope every month, and then she's gonna get hit with this. So it's gonna be a shock to some people. My concern is this, and I'm already doing it myself. I'd like to make improvements to my property. I have the property where my house sits, and I have an empty lot next to it that I purchased, and I would like to build something on there, or maybe build steps going from one lot to the other, or whatever. And since gravel driveways are not considered an impervious area, are considered an impervious area, so it's no benefit to put in gravel instead of concrete, or even pavers instead of concrete. I'm concerned that there's gonna be no incentive to improve properties. And in my neighborhood, that's a huge thing. We want people to come in and fix them up and, build a patio or build a garage or build steps up your hill or build whatever. And if all of that is going to be taxed, that just seems a bit extreme to me. Going to put that deck on, but it's going to cost you $33 more in your property taxes. That's kind of frustrating to me. So I guess the question is how often is this going to be evaluated? I don't know how often, the city evaluates for property taxes and costs and stuff. Are we going to do this every year? Are we going to do this every 5 years? Are you going to do it every time the property is sold? When are we going to reevaluate impervious areas?
The city, my understanding, when I was on the council, property tax assessments occur every 2 years by the county. It's required by state statute.
Okay,
Every 2 years, no more nor less.
right.
And until we found that out the hard way, Rawls County wasn't doing an assessment every 2 years, doing it whenever they wanted to. And,
That's a different county, if it's a
But-
county statute.
personal property, real estate property. Now, the personal property assessment, I think, is based on Blue Book value or whatever.
Sure, but we're talking about square foot. So like I said, if I want to finally add my 3-season room that I've been dreaming about for the last 20 years, that's going to add cost. If I just put a deck in my backyard, according to what Black and Veatch says, that is now an impervious area. And so that is going to be added to my cost. So theoretically, if I put steps down the side of the hill or steps in a slide for my granddaughter, now I'm being taxed for that. And I think some of this is a little extreme, you know?
Who's gonna assess it?
You know, if I build a fire pit and put nice pretty pavers around it, now I've got an impervious area. And I'm like, that just seems stupid. The only other choice is to keep letting it grow up in weeds. Why would I want to do that? So it just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like there's not any incentive to improve.
Can I ask you the
Yeah.
solution?
Well, that I don't know. And I don't know if, you know, in my mind, I get the reasoning behind gravel driveways and pavers and things like that. Even a deck, some of the water's going to run in between the boards, not just run off. I get that there's a reason it's not a pervious area, because there is, you know, once it sifts through, then it's, I don't know. I've had it explained to me, but I don't fully understand it. But I don't know. I think maybe they're, you know, hard structures where the water is definitely running off, you know, maybe is your 33 per 500 square feet. But, you know, something like a gravel driveway, or, you know, someone goes to the expense of putting pavers in rather than concrete. I mean, I just think that some of that's going to filter through, and there should be, I don't know if that would be like some sort of tiered tax system, depending on what it is, or
For
yeah.
change in
Can
that
it
sort of-
just be figured on rooftops?
I got
So-
a counterpoint to
Make it
that.
simple.
Okay, that's fine.
So I'm in favor of the impervious area. I have 2 acres over here in Oakwood, and it's going to affect me, and I have plans on additions and everything else. I'm worried, though, that the impervious area fee is not going to be enough to start the utility. I have real concerns about that. I was saying the exemptions on the 501c3s and the water retentions, while those are great, they are way overlooked by I'm not picking,
No.
but the developers who've put a lot of money into their subdivisions and stuff, they maintain these, but they make them once, then they forget about them. Sorry. But I don't believe that the impervious area is actually going to be enough money to start this utility. So while it might be hard to swallow, we might all have to take a smaller or bigger jump on the 500 minimum 500 square feet. It's just my opinion there. I did some paper, pen and paper stuff, and it just doesn't seem like enough to get the just the impervious area. I stand by it, and it would be really hard to get this pushed through. But like, you know, these retention ponds, I just don't think it's going to be enough. I hate to be the naysayer.
Couldn't you just increase the amount of what you're charging per square foot or whatever it is? Did you say
So that-
33?
That really is what we would end up doing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would ask, so let me ask you a couple questions for my clarity. Number one, have we done a good enough job to let you know that we need that 4 million a year?
We understand.
Yeah.
I don't know that the public does.
Because we've got the Black and Veatch study, we've got it, that 5-year plan is absolutely fleshed out. And I believe we've shared that with you. I think we sent that to you in previous emails. Is that correct? You've seen that? You can get into the spreadsheets. You can see what we're doing on a monthly basis, I believe, in some of that. So is that, I mean, are we,
I just read Rod Peters' comments on it, and I know his comment is that he does, I don't know if he knows the total cost, but I don't think he thought you needed to start up with a $4 million budget. And where'd you come up? I knew Black and Veatch did the study to create it, but possibly starting out at $2 million or something like that. I know it won't be adequate long-term, and it'd have to be increased in a couple of years probably.
yes.
I'm not so against the 4 million. I understand where it comes from, but there is a whole thing of getting it over to the voters first.
You got it.
getting it passed, if you price yourself out.
But I think there's, if I may, there's another, maybe we don't need to look at it. But federal government, EPA, they're out there, and we're not in compliance. And they like to find people. And finding people is not gonna get our stormwater problem solved, it's just gonna take money away from us. I'd like to,
So if we were to get fined, where would that get paid from?
if we were what?
If we were to get fined, where does that fund come from?
Police
pays the
budget,
fine?
The street budget, anything that the city's got a budget from, because they're gonna have to pay that out of the city.
City
funds.
or board money?
Probably city.
City.
No, the city would be paying it.
Being the one called to attention that you gotta get something done here.
So then, in turn, then how will that get funded?
Cutting service.
They're cutting.
Yeah.
Cutting,
We have-
so
It's a
it's
circular
still
problem.
impacting our folks in town.
It'll get cut by.
So they're gonna pay for it as
No
well.
city services, no street,
Or,
improvements, no nothing.
or their taxes go up to help offset some of that as well and things like that, so.
Exactly.
So how do we incorporate that into the sale?
I think all that justification is our big area of focus. What do we need? Why do we need it? If we don't, I need some projections, how much this is gonna cost and what immediately we want to do. If we don't have those numbers to present to the community, they're gonna think we're blowing smoke, and I would too.
And that's where we'll make sure that you have that. Again, I'll send, whether you got the first time, make sure that you've got that
What document
detail
is that in?
of what they, what's that?
What
Is that that
document
giant
was that in?
spreadsheet?
It's what, yeah. There
Because
was,
that's
think it
not
was
real
One of the
clear.
first
I think it was
emails
the
that came out.
first email.
it was
very
long, it was
yeah.
very, for a long time ago.
100 and some pages.
Yeah. Yeah,
107.
it's a big one, like I said, and part of it
Is
is,
this from Black and Beach?
there's, yeah, I believe, yes.
Darren sent it out
Yeah.
from, memo from
All
Black.
right, maybe it's not.
Tom,
that.
did you, it's
Once
in there,
you
get
get
that
a
binder.
whole lot of pages.
We'll get you one.
I'll make sure that it's the one that has all the spreadsheets. It's an Excel spreadsheet form that talks about
I
what
don't
we
think
went
it's in
through,
the
who's going
PowerPoint.
to-
I think it was a
It's
different.
not the
email.
PowerPoint,
No.
it's not that one, it's a
No,
different
it's
one.
not that,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
big.
it's
a
separate
previous-
email.
I've got two from Black and Beach. One got a whole bunch of charts and graphs in it. The other one I got from Black and Beach is what we saw our first meeting on the screen.
Yeah.
But the
Tom didn't
citizens are
get
not
it.
gonna understand
No.
all that. We need to condense it to
needs to
where
be-
it's.
Well, I have condensed it. We need $4 million.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that,
But it would
yeah,
help.
I don't mean that, I guess I do mean it flippantly, I apologize, but at what level does
I
each
do
person
too.
need to be able to see that to understand?
Well, we need to be able to, when we're doing whatever we're gonna do to educate the public, we're gonna say, okay, $4 million a year, that's a huge number, and I understand that. And so the first year, we're gonna take care of as many places around town that have street plates over them, correct? I mean, we need to tell people, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do. And when they hear that part of that money, and I know how much it costs, working for an engineering firm, we have a survey department, I know how much it is to go out and assess stormwater pipes, how good or bad they are, whether they're full, whether they need to be flushed out, whether they can be used, whether they need to be replaced. I mean, just that in itself is a lot of money. But the general public does not want to pay money for that. That's a hard truth, because they can't see a product from that money. They want to know whose streets are getting fixed, whose sewers getting fixed, which culverts are getting fixed. That's what the public wants to know.
Right on the money, because what's gonna be scary is the first year and a half, you're not gonna see a lot of dirt turning,
Right.
because we're gonna be cleaning, we're gonna be surveying, and we're gonna be looking at where our property lines versus what the stormwater is underneath the ground. We've gotta make a decision, what do we do with stormwater that's on private property? And
So
I'll tell you right now, I'm
okay to
looking at,
share that.
That's right. What's
I-
that?
I think that's okay to share that. You may not
We've
see
got it.
anything
That's right.
for
Yeah,
a
but
year. We've got to
As to
estimate
placate,
that.
You
to
bet.
placate the public, you're gonna have to fix something somewhere once a year. You're gonna have to. You gotta be able to say, my money's going there. You have to.
You got a multi-million-dollar grant coming in quickly. I'm not sure when we get that grant money for
The North Street?
North Street, so you're gonna have a construction project underway
That'll be a big one.
very rapidly.
Yep.
And very obvious to a lot of people.
Right.
Darren Matt had a per foot cost for that. Do you remember what that is?
North Street's gonna cost roughly $2,000 a foot.
That sounds about right, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So there,
On a
there's
$5 million grant, you're right.
That, okay, $2,000 a foot includes the excavation, the pipe, the rock backfill, the labor, if it's got,
Still sounds high.
I'm just saying, the road, yeah, the road repair, the compaction, and then labor also, if it's got state or federal money in it of any kind, they have to pay prevailing wages, which increases the cost. I don't know where the board's,
Necessary.
right. So $2,000 a square foot is actually, that might be
For running
kind of
foot.
low. Because we just did a bunch of sewer, actual sanitary sewer, and I think it was more than that a foot.
Don't
so.
tell us that.
Well, the
You're
cost
right.
of the
No,
pipe
you're
went
absolutely
up,
right,
so it's, but
Absolutely
it,
right.
when you hear that $2,000 a square foot, that's not just the pipe. That
Oh,
is
right.
every
Oh, yeah.
single solitary thing involved in putting that piece of pipe in the ground.
Lisa's put a lot of pipe in the ground. She knows exactly how fast
Yeah,
that can
still sounds
multiply very easily. So,
And you don't
thank
see
you.
it once
That's
it's
what
buried.
MoDOT's
Yeah.
responsibility is to that,
MoDOT's in the middle of it. We are working with them.
because they built on the creek first.
There's, all those things have to be taken
Yeah.
into consideration.
Are they suggesting they'll share the cost of anything underneath their roads? Have they,
This
No.
doesn't cross under their road. This is just.
you're going up to it,
From Bridge
79.
Street up to the old bridge.
Yeah, well, 79's there, so that's
But we don't
MoDOT.
cross it though.
You're not crossing it,
Not
you're
crossing
cutting to
it
it,
at this
okay.
point.
And you're gonna stop at
At the
Mark
old
Twain
bridge
Avenue,
approach.
yeah,
Yep.
where you don't move on to MoDOT.
Correct. That's correct.
But they're gonna supply it,
Yep.
especially with their new overpass out there that inundated it.
Yes, that's where we're messing with. And so you've got that
I just
wonderful
wondered if-
storm drain that
Yeah,
goes up
I
that
know,
side
goes
of,
under the buildings and stuff.
under the buildings and everything else. We've still got to get our responsibility. What is our responsibility? Get it out from underneath those
Right.
private properties to our public road.
I didn't know if they'd come in to MoDOT's taking any responsibility yet.
No, they're really
No.
good at,
Okay, that's my question. No.
they're really good at it. Just-
Random question, just
Yes.
from the construction side. When we replace storm sewer, what are we replacing it with? Are we using reinforced concrete pipe? Are we
Yes.
using HDPE? Are we using, what are we using?
It's gonna be dependent on where it is located. So that would be reinforced concrete pipe because it'll be pressurized when the river's elevated.
Okay,
But like new subdivisions, that type of thing, we've been utilizing HDPE.
okay.
So it depends where.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of corrugated metal pipe in some places around
No.
town that's
No.
failing, and that really needs to go away.
But it's all buried.
Yeah,
Can I,
We're not gonna put any more corrugated metal pipe in the ground.
thank you, okay.
to,
One,
Could I ask
one's higher than the other.
One question.
absolutely.
Okay.
Committee.
No,
Was
I meant-
this 3832 impervious cost per 500 square feet?
Yes,
That was the
Okay.
recommendation.
And like I have 10,000 impervious square feet, so it'd be 20 times that.
You
for the year.
divide, you
you
divide
divide by 500.
the 10,000 by
Take that
500
number by the
multiplied by
38.
that,
Yeah,
yes.
20 times that amount there.
Now, is that your roof?
No, that's my driveway. and
Okay.
and my roofs.
So, so we want to make sure that when people ask you that, that's the formula. I think that's it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And what I've done is you just go to Google Earth, and you can do measures on top of
Yeah.
the roof, you can take it off the garage, you can take it off of the sidewalk, and you do that math just like that, and that's exactly what you do. So it's that 500 square foot is the minimum. When you asked, is 500 square feet the minimum? If you have nothing built, all it is an empty lot, you will still be assessed for 500 square feet. So the minimum pay for a lot that has not been developed on at all will pay the $33.
Just like her, she has an empty lot next to you right now, I do too, so she's gonna have to pay a minimum of 500 on that lot.
No.
Not $500.
The 38.
No, 500 square feet.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
$38 minimum, just like I'll have to do on
Which
my extra lot that I bought.
Yes.
might actually cover my stairs.
There's, even though there's nothing there.
Correct.
38. With a little
Yeah,
astroturf
it's
over the top,
38
would
or
you notice that
33.
it's,
I wouldn't be able to see that from Google Earth.
I need to cover my driveway in green?
Fake them out.
You going camo on us or what?
So let's talk about the exempt properties.
Yeah.
What do you want to do there?
Well, I don't think they should be exempt, but kind of sounded like from the attorney, he was like, well, you're gonna get
in big
sued.
trouble if we try to.
And it's like, we don't wanna eat up a bunch of money fighting a lawsuit.
So
But they use water, electric.
I know, there's,
including them in it is going to
An example of exempt again?
a church, school,
Salvation Army.
Salvation Army.
Well, there's
for-profit.
There are several categories of not-for-profits. 501c3 is the most common one, but there's 4, I think there's about 10 categories in the 501c
HLG,
category.
Hospital.
I believe with what we've looked at is at approximately 20,
And I could be
20
wrong on the 10, it could be
percent.
12.
of our parcels are exempt, fall under that. And so what that does, if we use the impervious area, it takes, I can't remember the number. If we included them, it was $27. But if we don't include them, it's going to be the 30.
33 or 38 or whatever it
$38.
is, yeah.
And
I
so-
didn't even calculate it with them included because
Could
unless
even
we can
include them.
absolutely convince everybody that this actually is a utility, in which case they'll wonder why there's not a user fee. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard unless you utilize if we could utilize a franchise fee on their utilities, then that would circle them back in. But if we're just doing property tax, they're exempt.
Yes, I understand that myself, but
I mean, that's.
I don't know if it's legal even.
Right.
I know there are, franchise fees, can go up to 9% in Missouri, I believe, and they're at 5.5 now. Creating about
So
$1.7
let me
million
get
for the
this,
city.
let me get this really clear. What you're suggesting is, while I provide electricity, I provide water, and I provide sewer to our existing customers, you're saying put an additional franchise fee on top of those, an additional 3.5%, going from 5.5 to 9, correct? If I'm doing the math.
Possibly, whatever generating money.
And so that would be a fee that we would charge for stormwater.
Yes.
For everybody.
And it would be for
All utility
anyone.
payers.
Correct,
pay.
correct.
Utilities.
Yeah,
like
Now-
renters.
Yeah, that'd be
I
everybody.
will, okay, and again, I come back to, I will ask the attorney. That's
that's
a
fine.
very interesting idea that I've never had, and that's.
I'm thinking the 5.5's a cap.
I think it's a state cap.
I'll jump in on that one. So,
Is
you
it-
said 9% for the state. I have no reason to disbelieve that. The charter currently caps it at 5.5. So in order
Okay.
to do that, and if you were to do it a separate solution, you'd have to do 2 separate votes.
Okay. I didn't know
You'd
about
have
the
to
charter
change-
capped it.
You'd have to change the charter.
Yes.
sir.
Charter of Hannibal?
City.
City
Yeah.
charter.
We're a charter community.
And like I said, that's what I'd just been told is the 9% was the cap in Missouri, because there's a few cities charging that amount.
Okay. I'll at least.
Legal would have to,
Yeah,
you know,
I will
like you
take
said.
that to legal immediately, and we'll find out.
but
what that
if
goes.
there's it's almost gonna be hard to break it through a charter change.
Yeah.
It's just almost impossible.
Yeah. it gets
Does
pretty-
that have to be voted on, charter?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what you took as
Um,
excludes exempt.
Yes.
That's where you got that number.
Yes, that's where I got that number.
Now, and I
Because you're
apologize,
not
let me
looking at
preach at you
charter.
just for a little bit.
503.
The preaching is this: we talk about the person at the top of the hill and the person at the bottom of the hill. And we have utility rates, we have things that are for the greater good of the community. And that's where, we know that good old General Mills is right by Bear Creek Dam. And they go right into but everybody drives the roads. I really hope we can get our mindset changed that while we're talking stormwater, what we're talking about is safe roads, safe driving, the ability for people to drive downtown, the people to drive on Mark Twain Avenue, the people to drive everywhere we are on every street. It really isn't the fact, so if you're blessed enough to be at the top of the hill, you don't have storm problems. But it's the person at the bottom of the hill that always has storm problems. So they should be at the bottom of the hill, they should be paying for everything. And so comes back to where we've got to make it fair, but it really is, this is really for the greater good of all. It is the greater good of all. And so unfortunately for those that you don't have your own stormwater pipe, that you're helping everybody else take care of their stormwater. And so I hope that's an idea that we can put in our head and our heart, and that's what we're doing it for.
Well, I think what you're saying is, it's a community. It's a community problem.
Yeah.
It's not an individual problem. It's a community problem. It affects individuals, but it's a community problem.
Yes,
But you have to sell it.
I know.
we do. Next question, and this one I'm going to keep my mouth shut, I promise. What I call electioneering. How are we going to, when do you want to take this to the people? How do you want to take it to the people? So what's happened, we're going to go with the methodology. I don't know if you're ready, if you want to talk about it tonight and land on. I think we're going to take and move forward, at least ask questions about the property tax, the franchise fee. That we will definitely take that to legal and see if we want to move forward with that. I believe what I hear is that most everybody feels that the impervious area is the way to go, that is absolutely the right way. And so I'm going to go forward with 90% of that decision is there. I will still look at those others.
Yeah,
We're gonna move-
franchise if that would work.
If that works, that
Or-
sounds
or a
really good.
combination thereof even,
Hey,
right?
just quick
Right.
napkin math. If we were to
Napkin.
raise the franchise fee from 5.5 to 9, that would generate $1.1 million.
That's about what I had in mind.
It's a good
That'd
start.
be
I
a
looked at
quarter of
the
the way
cities.
there.
Be a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
So then you could take your $38 and move that down, cut that
Well, and let me-
to $28.
Yeah.
Let me also say this, because I'm the stewardship committee chairman of our church. On our utility bill, we pay franchise tax. Now, we're tax exempt, but we pay franchise tax on the utility bill. So, tax exempts who
Would be
get
kicking in.
utilities will pay a
Would
portion of
be
that.
kicked in.
So how
Fair.
tricky is that gonna be? If we can do the franchise tax, that would include everybody, including nonprofits, tax exempt people, but then we'd have to make up the difference in the property tax, and now they're exempt again, is that correct? Is that what I'm assuming to be correct?
Well, yeah.
So you
They're-
have part of
They're
it,
exempt from property tax and personal property, real
Right.
estate and personal.
right,
But they do pay a franchise tax on the utility bill.
so that would be the only way to incorporate them in.
Even your impervious that you're talking about, just
Based
chances
on-
are you're not gonna get them to pay.
I agree.
Based
That's what
on-
I'm saying. So that if we could do a combination of the two, if it wasn't too legally tricky, the wording would have to be very specific, but if we could do both, that would be a,
I just think it'd be great, but trying to sell it might be a problem because it may become
And you're
confusing.
talking 2 votes as well.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
But I'll check into it, at least we'll ask legal and find out.
okay.
But,
Darren,
yes,
getting back to your ballot question, what is on the November ballot? We
Yeah.
know it's going to be, do we have any legislative elections, or what are the main issues that are on the November ballot?
can I take and turn that over to our in-house experts that I'm gonna pick on, Mike and Stefan, do you guys have, and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and I apologize, you're really out of the.
Yeah, it would be a pretty uphill battle, I think,
For what?
for the franchise fee as well as the tax.
Well-
Oh, you were talking about the ballot.
November.
What else is on the
April.
ballot?
In November.
I don't think there's anything this
I'm not aware of
November
anything. There's,
until
states-
24. That's the next general election.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any unless,
It's an open slot that, per my knowledge, we can use, that the state can use.
Sure, it is a,
But it would be perhaps the only thing on the ballot, and turnout would be next to nothing.
exactly.
Is
Now,
that good
the
or
other
bad?
thing,
Is that good or bad?
the other thing that's been mentioned is 2 ballot issues. You put both of those on the same ballot and they're probably both gonna go
It'll
down.
be confusing.
You've got to figure out which one you need to know first. And sell that, and then sell the other one.
Jay, did you have a comment?
Well, if, I'm not gonna say.
We're all we're all friendly here. We're
You
okay.
have to do the increased charter first, if you were gonna go with the franchise, if it's already
If
at
you're
its
gonna
cap.
use the franchise,
yeah.
I agree, the charter needs to be changed to.
First, and
To
then-
allow
and
the
then
city to increase that tax.
Back to Bob's comment earlier about the number of people voted in the area they're from. I think that's, if we're gonna have an issue, that's where we need to do is focus on the areas that.
That need the work done.
Well,
Yeah.
but the people who are gonna vote for it are not the people that need, not the area probably needs the work done. It's the people like Bob said that voted yes. And back from the school issues we had, that's how we focused, is where the people that voted and focused on those areas so that we could get a good voter turnout that was positive for what we were looking for. So you have to deal with your.
Yeah, Bob, do you mind sharing what areas voted it down?
Happen to have a ward map and the numbers.
Bob, do me a favor, please speak into your microphone. People need to hear this.
There you go.
There it's going.
Looking at the ward map for the city of Hannibal and the 6 wards from the 2019 election that lost by 12 votes. The first and second ward, which are out in the northern wards, first ward is up here, second ward up in here, are least affected by the proposal or the stormwater issues. The fourth ward, down in here, voted it down, 97 or 119 no's, 97 yeses. Sixth ward, which is
The green.
right in here, they voted it down 274 to 237. So these areas were the areas that voted down the proposals, where the outer bound areas here voted with it. And in the case of the Rawls area, which were represented here, that would be Ward 5. Ward 5 was pretty much a tie, 139 no and 134 yes. But you're splitting hairs with 12 votes. But you got to get those 12 votes right out of the affected area. That gets back to selling the repair of the roads and the plates and everything else, where these people down here are the ones that are really going to be affected by some of the corrections.
Well, one of those no votes was mine, and part of the reason was, because I didn't know what was going on, which is the other thing.
Education.
I think we really need to figure out, I'm not a social media guru, so if you wanted, I would hesitate to do a lot of social media anyway, because all the armchair,
Quarterbacks.
yeah. But, would it be beneficial to have town hall type meetings? Could we have a couple of those over at Stoll School? Could we have a couple of those over, so that we could kind of recap what the issues are, explain why we're doing what we're doing, bring up DNR, emphasize the road safety. Again, the fourth ward is partly the south side, and everybody over there remembers when that girl fell through that sidewalk. So if you tell them it was because of the storm sewer failing and we want to improve that. Of course, like I said, the next question is, of course, they have fixed that now. But the next question is going to be, because of how things typically happen in town, the south side, Fourth Ward, doesn't get a whole lot of work done compared to some of the other areas. So, we feel like we get leftovers, and that this sat for 2.5, almost 3 years.
Yes, it did.
With open sidewalk, fenced off, weeds growing everywhere before it was even addressed, and they came up with the money to fix it. And there's no doubt in my mind that while they fixed that, there are bigger issues in that same area because it's some of that old stone archway culverts and stuff. So people over there are going to want to know, when is it our turn? When are you going to fix it? When in this 5-year plan is our turn? So we would need that information if we were going to have a town hall kind of meeting. And I think we need to, because the people who want to go vote want to know what they're voting for.
Well, I think for us to properly educate the voting public, when we go out, if we are the ones that go out and sell it, which the city can't sell it and the board can't sell it.
Right. And there
It has
will
to
be
be
some.
an ad hoc committee, and that's kind of what we are, folks.
Right. So does there have to be some sort of,
Well, what I was going to say
where
is,
are the funds coming from, I guess, and how are we
Who's
going to
gonna fund
prove
that?
where they came from, that they didn't come from the board? I mean, is all that have to be set up? Like,
the ad hoc committee, the way it goes, yes, you have to establish a committee with a volunteer funding source. City can't put money in it, and the board can't, but we would have to encourage people that want to see stormwater improved to contribute to that fund so that we can create a pamphlet for mailing, if we mailed it or handed out. But yeah, it has to be a standalone political campaign committee.
right. And then there's also a process even for getting it on the ballot and stuff, right? Is there ethics stuff associated with that?
Wording.
We
Yeah.
can do that.
Are you
We will-
sure?
Yes, so far as putting it on the ballot, that is absolutely okay, we
Okay,
can do that.
all right.
But I was going to say, when we're out there talking to the public,
Mm-hmm.
as we go around town, I really think, to start out with, we need to be talking about a project in their area
I agree.
where they're going to see some effect in the first 5 years.
Yeah,
And it's not all just going to go to the 4th ward or the 5th ward or the 1st ward or the 2nd ward or whatever.
Right.
It's going to,
or just
every
downtown.
ward's going to have a project,
Right.
at least one project.
I agree. And I don't know, I don't remember what your 5-year plan looks like. I saw a bunch of, like I said, research and study, and I'm like, that's not gonna go over good.
So I'll tell you, so maybe that's something we have to decide to do, is that we have 6 wards.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna survey it, we're gonna clean it, we're gonna assess it. And from that assessment, we're gonna set our priorities. The worst ones come first. And that has, we'll have that. But perhaps we're gonna have to say, we're gonna have to do the worst one in each ward. So they each get one at least, and then we move, and
And
that's
then you
tough.
can regroup and go back.
And
to
then-
Right.
Because almost all the problem, I guarantee, is good old, I know we're getting environmental or anyways, pressures in this world that where you put and built things in the wrong place out of prejudice. It's not, it's called gravity, and everything goes downhill, and most everything that's down at the bottom is the worst. And so that's where
Right.
most of that work is gonna be going.
Sure.
But that's what, anyways, I digress. Bob?
One of the things when you're selling that, you can't forget about the rest of the voters. You can focus on one ward, but you gotta give the positive aspects to the rest of the community.
Sure.
And we haven't had any newspaper coverage. We've had 2 published meetings here, no coverage at all. Somewhere we gotta get some positive comments, maybe at the next meeting, get some encouragement for somebody to drop in and we have a sense of where we're going, and what it's really gonna bring to the party, and also consideration of using social media. I really remember all the discussions on the Hannibal Marina, which turned out to be fantastic in the end. It went through some negatives and pluses and everything else, but yet the coverage was there so that the community knew what, to a certain extent, what was going on, and then focus in the particular areas that are gonna be hardest hit to get started with. But town hall meetings, never leave out the rest of the community when you're focusing on one particular
Right.
area.
Thank you.
Well, and Andrea, I thought that at our first meeting mentioned similar things about social media and getting the word out and having their own Facebook page or whatever.
There is a funding mechanism that the Mark Twain Board of Realtors and the Missouri Association of Realtors helps pay for things like this.
GoFundMe page.
Yeah, a GoFundMe page. No, so we have to let them know what we're trying to get passed, and they come up. I mean, I've seen them come up with as much as $3,500 for yard signs and flyers and everything. So I had asked John Ravenscraft to come tonight because he's been the board president in the past, and he knows a little bit how to do that. But he had a graduation, so.
Some of them did. That's
Yeah.
the ones that aren't here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good.
Yes.
Mike?
The way that we sold the infrastructure tax that the city passed back in April was we had a small committee of 5 or 6 people, and we met at Klinger, and a local business volunteered to do the flyers for us. And a member over at Klinger and myself pitched in $100 apiece. We bought a few signs. Some local community people went to service clubs, did speeches, informationals, and I know myself, it was an election year for me, and I had an opponent, so every person in the second ward got one of my flyers and one of the flyers for the sales tax on the door. And it passed in second ward.
I neglected to mention the Community Economic Development Group. There was just an article in the paper here. I'm not who's on it or what have you, but that would be a great group. We're working with a wide range of people downtown to try to get on board with us.
Very good. Thank you.
And our civic organizations, they're a cheap way to start word of mouth going around. It's hitting your Kiwanis and your JCs and stuff like that, where you could hit a group of people that could pass it on word of mouth the old way.
Yep.
Yeah, Rotary.
And I think the last time, Matt, how many meetings do you guys have that on the last one?
26.
26 of them. So, yeah, you're right. No, you're
Well,
absolutely
27 might have passed it.
right. Dang it, Matt.
Go talk to them.
Yeah, I know, you're right.
So now here's back to yes, Jay.
I was just gonna add that, I know we're trying to spin this to where the positives and all that stuff, but I think our voters also need to know the harsh reality as well, somehow,
Exactly.
as far as if we don't do this, here's the impact. That's gotta be in the message,
Very true.
part of the education piece.
Thank you. So
Collapsing street.
here's part of just simply looking at dates. And again, he's perfect at these. If we're looking at the November ballot, we've got to have this pretty much wrapped up and know what we're doing with it by the June board meeting, which is, we're talking 1 month roughly from now.
That's too fast.
That's pretty darn fast.
Which board meeting?
Our June board meetings. The
Board of
third-
Public Works?
Yes, and that will be the 20th of June.
Okay.
Why do we have to
But
have
you
a-
could always have,
Because
you could always have a special meeting.
we could, because it goes to us, we're gonna have our board approve it, then we're gonna take it to the city council. City council has to have 2 readings. They then take, and once they've approved that, then it goes to the election board. The election board puts it on the ballot, and those are all the timeframes to make it. Matt,
Technically, you're correct, but
Okay.
the city council can declare it an emergency reading, and it only gets
You
one,
can get on
first
it.
and
Okay.
second the same night.
okay, and I believe
The council has that authority.
I believe they'd be willing to do that. But that, and so,
We can't count over.
Yeah, good saying. You gotta hope for the worst.
We've done it once
As long as you
before.
don't propose it.
It doesn't happen very often. Usually, you get one reading, one meeting, and 2 weeks later you get the second. But if it's something that's pressing for time, the council can make a motion to give it an emergency reading, which means when they read it, that's automatically the first and second reading, and it's done.
okay.
Was there concerns
How
with
much we
people
gained
seeing
though.
that being forced?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're rushing this.
And then the
through,
next
yeah.
Trying to
So
rush
then-
it to meet a timeline now?
So that would be the November. If we're doing April, we need to have it by December, and then that, those
Well,
same timeframes. would go
And that's a
through it.
good
So-
point. If we're trying to do November, and somebody made the point, Steve made the point, November, there's nothing on the ballot. So there's not really a whole hell of a lot that's gonna pull people
Draw
out.
the voters in, yeah.
Now, the April ballot is always a municipal ballot. And then there are other ballot months like June and August. And in 24,
Yeah.
you will have the primary election in 24. In 24, we'll probably already will have a presidential primary in February or March. I don't know if they've made up their mind whether they're going to go through with that in the state of Missouri. And then 24 November is the presidential election. And you're going to elect a new president, Missouri Senator Holly's up for re-election in 24. Every state officer, governor on down is up for re-election except for the auditor. So 24 will be a big election.
April
If you wait
or
till
November?
I'm
We-
20 November.
Yeah, well, no, I think we gotta go by April.
Well, I'm not advocating, I'm just
That's-
letting you
yeah.
know what's gonna happen in November
Yeah.
24. It's gonna be a big election.
Is
Mr.
there,
Gordon,
yes,
could I make a motion that we take a vote from this committee to move forward? Yes or no?
yes. Now, now I'm gonna ask you this, I'm gonna ask you to clarify a little bit. Are you saying you wanna shoot for this coming November election,
Correct.
or do you wanna shoot for the April election?
November.
Do you wanna go for the November election? Now, this is not an official vote or anything like, well, he's made a motion, is anybody else, any discussion?
Just one question on that. I think I'm gonna support the vote, but we really have until that board meeting to decide for sure whether we're going. We'll have our language all down and everything else. We gotta be very comfortable before that November or the cutoff, what was it, the
Make
August
sure you're ready
meeting?
first.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so,
We're not.
I still have the question, let's, before Mr. Lennon,
I can understand where you're going
Yeah.
from, but
Mr. Lennon, before we move forward with that, we've got that there. Are we going with the impervious area? I think that we need to discuss that one first. Is that what we're doing? Are we going to consider
other options.
the use of the franchise tax, the use of the real property tax, are those off the table? I apologize, I think we're a little premature on making
Okay,
that.
okay, I'm just trying to get a consensus from this committee if we're ready to move forward in November. Now, these other issues, we need to solve those first, but if we don't get to make and move, we're gonna end up 2 months from now going, well, we should have done this. It'd be just like before. I guess that's right.
Yeah, yeah. I like the combination of the impervious area and the franchise tax.
Yeah.
The impervious area would be would not include the nonprofits, but that could be one entity, and then the franchise tax could be what's applied to include the nonprofits. I'm thinking a combination.
But I think if you do that, November's too fast.
Throw it on the floor if you're done.
We've got a lot
Well,
of talk
and the
to
other
do.
thing is you have two ballot issues.
Yeah, because you don't want people to feel like you're trying to sneak something
Right.
through real quick.
Yeah,
They
it's a lot to get the word out. Yeah,
Now, you
gotta
could
get
do
the
it.
word out.
Okay, let me,
Try and
I
do a charter
apologize.
change in November, and then the municipal
Right.
do the impervious.
Let's, give me 30 seconds. Matt, stand up and say that again.
We would have to know by our July meeting, because, It has to go to the election authority by the 29th of August, which the council meetings in August are the 1st and the 15th. And so if we had it approved by our board at a regular July meeting, it could go to the council for 2 readings in August and still meet the deadline.
Get you 3
So,
meetings to.
if we're gonna move forward with your proposal, that we're gonna be doing this election this coming November, if that's kind of the delight of this committee, that we will move forward. I'll get you an answer as quick as we can on the franchise question, on the property tax then real property tax question, what we can do with those. And then, come back, and I think then you really gotta make that decision, what we're doing with impervious. And I'm assuming that really is the direction you'll go,
Well, and
depending on what the
I
other is.
think based on the way the people that responded to this, and I think Andrea put it in her email, I think today or yesterday, said that 90% of the people that turned in their answers were implying the impervious area.
Yes.
I hate to be the naysayer again, but
Go for it.
I don't think that charter fee will actually help us. I think it'll deter people from actually gaining enthusiasm with this.
You don't have to take, well, the charter change would go to the vote, but if all you have to do is increase the thing, you don't need a vote of nobody, except the council.
It's still got to go to the ballot for a charter change.
If the charter says 5.5, then you gotta go to the people. I'm saying, if the charter doesn't say 5.5, are you sure it does say
It does.
5.5?
The charter does.
Okay,
It absolutely
then
does.
It's gotta vote of people. It's almost gonna, like you said, it's probably impossible to get the charter changed.
Okay,
Right. So
I like to see it, but
we'll get that to you.
It's still something we can run by legal.
Yeah.
And have it out there as an option.
Yeah, we don't need to make a decision on that one tonight.
No. So again, hate to drag out everything, but do you want to meet, when would you want to meet next? Are you talking about another 2
Well,
weeks?
I think the next meeting was
2 weeks.
June something. Your original plan,
June 5th, I believe. But while you're looking at the dates, the other one is we're talking about giving credits for people that have, and what I heard is that you were saying people that have their own stormwater systems in place, specifically detention ponds. I would say that we look at, if you're looking at giving a credit for your larger customers, the industrial customers, that you leave it there. This is my request. If we have everybody that wants to come get credit for their stormwater barrel and for their rose garden and for their, we're gonna end up with 6,750 people coming to my office, and I'm gonna throw them all out and saying it's all your fault. We've got to be able to manage it. But if you truly are set on wanting to give some sort of credit for the larger industrials, I would ask you to consider that. I don't have any recommendations. I'd ask you to look at that.
leave it as an engineered, designed retention area.
We've got to talk to legal to see if we
Yeah.
can give credits on taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Because before you talked about using the adjustment board to give credits on large properties, and the answer on that was no. So I don't know. We'll look into that as well.
Can I throw
Okay.
something out? We've been talking about this stormwater for a long time, and some of the words just rub me the wrong way. Rainwater. Every rain is rain, but not every rain is storm. So that's why I hate the word stormwater. Because it can rain for 5 days straight and it didn't crack a lightning. But that's not the reason I'm saying this. One of the things that has come up as a big question to me is when we're looking at impervious, what we're doing is we're grading everybody by the amount of water that the city is now, as a utility, conveying off the property. So that's the utilities service of conveying the water off the property. The question I've come across, and I just can't determine whether it's a tax or whether it's a fee. And the two things have completely different meanings. If it's a fee that's conveying the water off your property, it might be looked at something different. And I just started looking at that particular differentiation in the last little while. But I don't know if that's going to be very important. But in your research, you might want to convince yourself whether it's a tax or a fee.
Or a
Well,
meter.
my understanding is it depends on the kind of fee, because we can't do a user fee because we can't meter it. And the Supreme Court, Missouri Supreme Court said, no go.
Well-
That almost automatically shifted it back to a tax unless there was some sort of franchise fee that we could utilize. So,
My question about that is, and I'm not legal background, but if we say we're measuring how much impervious you have, that's a form of metering.
That is a meter,
not
yes.
according to the Missouri Supreme Court.
Oh, I don't know all the language in
I'm
any
just
ruling.
saying,
So
it's
that's,
my understanding that that's what they were doing in
That's
St.
right.
Louis when whoever sued and the Missouri Supreme Court said, you're not actually metering it.
no.
And so that's where it has to go to the vote of the people.
Right, but a fee can be voted or a tax can be voted. So I don't know if it's important whether we're talking about this conveyance process that the utility is providing is a fee or a tax. That's all. I just want to leave that with you so you can kind of look at it on your own. I'm going to look at it a little more. Whichever it is, I think we should.
So we could do a user fee if they voted on it?
But it'd be treated like a tax,
It would be a tax.
because it would be subject to the Hancock Amendment.
Yeah, it's
It
just
wouldn't
the
be a
wording.
rate.
The wording,
like-
it's a
It
tax.
wouldn't be a rate
It's
like we
based upon what
adjust
you-
like water, sewer, or electric.
Got ya, okay.
And like you just said, the word fee is nicer than tax.
Yeah, people are
Everybody-
gonna say.
If you're gonna
no
tax my milk, don't you dare talk to me.
Right.
But if you're gonna if there's a fee for my milk, it's all right.
Cow.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Bob and then Stefan.
How close are we to be able to put a sample ballot language together with the 500 minimum and the impervious area, which we pretty much take the language right off the other, but we've modified that at different little aspects there, that for our next meeting, it may even have not a ballot issue,
Sample of it.
but a sample of the structure that we might be looking at. And then we can go to modification of that or throw it out, you know.
Okay.
Have
We will
something on
do
the
that.
table.
Yeah,
You'd have something there on the table and ready to go if the committee wanted to go
Yeah,
there.
you modify it accordingly from there.
Okay.
How much did this go up, this fee, from the last vote? This $38 is a lot more than the first time.
oh, the one that didn't pass?
I know Matt probably knows.
It was like $1.67 per 500 square feet,
Oh,
but it was monthly.
yeah,
So
I understand.
it was 7 days.
You had it figured on dollars per month. Divide this by 12 will give you your monthly, so
So
this is at 3.
2,000 square foot house, you'd be assessed roughly
$3.
Okay.
$160 a year for 2,000 square foot. Be roughly-
What was the monthly fee last time? 160 a month
It-
for 500?
I'll have to get that to you.
Oh, I didn't know if you knew offhand.
It
That's
started,
okay.
it
I'll look.
started out 130 and then it went up to 160 something.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the per 500 square foot, but I know that when we went to educate, we were telling people that for the average property, it was gonna be like $780 a month.
You're right.
Average. Residential, not commercial.
You made a distinction there, residential and commercial. I actually have a business here in town. What was your residential and commercial difference?
Was there one with the
No,
other?
it was
It's
the
just,
same-
Okay.
it's all based on that
Same
impervious
across the
surface.
board.
Okay.
Again, rooftop,
Calculation.
measure your rooftop.
Right.
parking.
If I'm, based on the graphs that we got like 2 weeks ago, and I'm not saying I did it right, but on the impervious, excludes exempt properties. The example they gave here was $38.32 a year, and that's $3.19 a month.
Yeah. That's what the increase between the last ballot and this ballot is double.
For 500 square feet.
For 500,
It was
yeah.
139
139?
for 500 square feet.
Okay, and it'll be 316 or 320, whatever you.
$3.19.
But as the rate that was proposed before included all the exempt properties.
Okay.
And so that's what.
That would have been
that
28.
reduced
Well, if you
20% of
include the exempt properties, I came up with 218.
Okay. It's fairly close and then.
I think what we were asking for before was a little bit less than the 4 million because
Okay.
things didn't cost.
If my math's right.
That's pretty close. Yeah.
We do have a back truck in that. We want to have a back truck like we have for jetting and cleaning. And those costs just for that truck have, over the last 2 years.
They don't give them away?
They do not. And they don't build them tomorrow. It takes a while to get them, so.
Well, 2 weeks from today would be June 1st.
Well, I'm trying to find out, you previously, at the beginning, we had 2 dates scheduled for meetings.
It was June.
I want to say June.
One in June and
That's a Sunday or something, isn't it?
June 5th was a Monday, so if you look at your calendars, would June 8th work for you again? Is there any reason I don't have June 8th? That's 3 weeks.
My phone's in the car.
June 8th?
You don't want to do it in 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I guess.
Well, that would be 2 weeks.
2 weeks would be June 1st.
Would be June 1st.
Oh, that'd be June 1st. I just remember Bob, when he proposed having this meeting, he just went 2 weeks.
Give everybody a lot of time to think about it.
The sample ballot, I think, will be a great thing to present at the next meeting if you can, because to get moving, the chance of any of that other type of taxes working probably is almost impossible maybe, but I just thought it'd be something to think about.
It's a great idea. Let's see what we can do. My guess is that it's gonna be pretty rough.
Yeah.
But hey, if it's an opportunity or an option.
Starting something to shoot holes through.
What's that?
Something to shoot holes through.
That's right. You know what?
Yeah.
Ask it now. Then you get an answer, and that's all right. We need to have done our due diligence.
Are we looking at Thursday the 8th then?
I was thinking the 1st.
The first.
June 1st is 2 weeks
2
away.
weeks.
That'll be better, because the 8th was my wife's birthday. And I was
Well, you wouldn't be here. We'll miss you, Larry.
I would bring her along. It'd be fun.
Right. Happy birthday, dear.
Okay.
All right, is that the consensus of the committee? We okay with June 1st?
Are you gonna draft this working sheet for us? Will you do that?
I will. So when you say that, here's what's next. So what I tried to put together was the talking points that we need to cover. I will do the same thing. And then when, probably ought to elect, because I really am not the one that should be talking here, who would be your co-chairman after Andrea?
Oh, that's right.
You cannot.
I nominate Bob.
Michelle's good at speaking.
Michelle does a pretty dang good job too, but I'm not a voting member here.
Yes, I just,
I nominate Lisa.
No. No.
there's still.
Now you know how it works.
Larry?
I would nominate Michelle because she speaks well and educated.
Yeah,
very
she's
well.
done a lot of research.
Michelle has a lot more knowledge about stormwater stuff than I do. So
Okay.
I would.
I hear a first and a second. Anybody want to bow out, Michelle?
What is it again you're expecting me to do?
Andrea's not here, you could be the
The
chairman.
chair if Andrea can't be here.
Okay,
Run the meeting.
all right, run the meeting.
Run the meeting.
All right, I'll give it a go.
All right, sounds good. As long as you as the committee agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
By
good enough.
acclamation, we agree.
All right. There's a joke about that. All right. Everybody whose mother didn't pass away last night, go ahead and step forward. Not so fast, Mr. You know, I know, it's a terrible joke. All right, with that one, do we adjourn? Anything else? Anything else?
I think we should talk about the caps to the gross area as well, because like I was saying, this impervious area, it's my number one pick. But there's not going to be enough on that.
Revenue.
So I know that I'm stirring a bucket here, but
Well, it's the minimum though. There's not a.
right. So we have
Properties out there that's only 500 square feet.
right. I do want to say that we should keep our minds open to that. I'm strictly in favor of the impervious area.
Is there a way to, if we went with that and went with impervious, is there a way to know how much is going to be raised? Without the franchise fee?
Yeah.
Just with the impervious?
There wasn't a cap on impervious, was there?
There was not a cap on impervious.
Okay.
So I assumed that the number that Black and Veatch came up with
Was
included
accurate.
all the impervious areas that we could count to get the 4 million. Is that my understanding?
What numbers did
Google
you?
Maps.
It was an estimation of impervious area. We have not digitized any
Okay.
flyovers of Hannibal at this point.
So it could actually generate more.
It was
or-
based
So that-
on the data available from from Marion County GIS, data that they had at back in 2015 or 18. And it was based on an estimation for Rawls County, because Rawls County GIS map does not include
It's
the
not-
square
yeah.
footage of the house.
So it's probably low then,
It's probably
because
high.
Betty totally developed.
You got
since
Betty, you got
18.
Breckenridge, you got Stone Ridge, you got your old subdivision, all these new subdivisions that came in since
Yeah.
So-
Oak Hill or Oak Spring.
You mentioned at one time that once this is more firm, and this is what we're going with, Black and Veatch is gonna come up with a more firm number. Would we have that? We would kinda need that before we went to the ballot, would
So
we
part of
not?
the question is, again, I'll ask you as the committee, do you want that? Because they're gonna have to go to, and it'll cost us,
No. You're not gonna make November.
yeah, there's
I
no
don't
way we
think
can
so
get it. We
either.
can get
No, I
it. So,
do not.
If you want,
I agree, I don't think we're gonna, I'm
100%
just
accurate
curious,
numbers.
when
Yeah.
is the timeline for them getting us a more accurate number? Because if we're gonna try to have meetings and flyers and whatever to educate people, they're gonna wanna know what the numbers are. If we
You're
give
gonna-
them a rough guess and then it turns out that it's way higher than that, then we're not gonna get it passed. I mean,
right.
so when are we gonna have a more concrete number from them?
You're not,
It can't.
because it's gonna cost
Money.
$40,000 just to digitize the flyover map from 2021.
What I would, here's what I would,
It takes 6 months to do it.
And not, is there, you can't get any of that through Integrity Marion County website?
No. The only thing Marion County GIS map has is the square footage of the house. It doesn't include outbuildings or driveways. Rawls County has no data on that.
And is there gonna be, and again, we didn't really talk about how often this is gonna be assessed, but, so is there gonna be a person on your staff that goes out and does this assessment? Does the
It would be
city?
based on periodic flyovers and digitization of the new aerial, but then we utilize building permits to update new additions within the city.
Why don't you bring that discussion back to us next meeting?
Well,
Once you
you
find
didn't
out
do
with the
analysis,
sample
data
ballot.
analysis.
and then
Now
we'll
you're
have
talking
something to
administrative.
base.
Oh, no, I know,
look
time,
forward
and
on.
yes.
so, well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I would
You
do
don't have.
is I would tell you that I would set this number at $38.37, that is the maximum,
Talk about expenses.
the only thing that's gonna happen. So
Cause see, I
we
work
will
for
take
engineers, so I know,
a maximum.
but,
So we're gonna charge $38.37 per 500 square foot. We're then gonna go back and once, if and when that passes, we will then go and do the actual, and if that number is less than that, we will lower it to that actual number.
I mean,
If it's above
you know what
that,
I mean, or
we're gonna live with that loss. Yeah, let me give me.
What we would tell them is we're stuck with that for the first 5 or 10 years. until we can show them progress.
I would tell it to the citizenry, and that would be the policy.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying then, when you did the study, when did you get the last data? 2008, what'd you say?
18?
18, so
was
18,
Marion County dump.
with the 18 data, which we have grown, you're saying the worst case scenario is the $38.
Yes.
So you've grown, and you
Black
think that the average comes down.
Should come down.
Black and Beach
Penny.
included a contingency in there for stuff that was tore down since then, because that would count against. I mean, that would be a reduction in impervious area.
Yep.
And then you do have the new growth as well.
So
But with the growth-
You're hedging your bet then that will not be higher than $38.
That's what I am
We'll
saying.
cover it.
Correct.
And that would be a little confusing to the public, and like, oh, $38? Well,
Per
$38 per
500 square feet.
You know, it's like, they're gonna go right past.
And that's,
Go back to the language of per month average.
well, and the other thing is, we had people that were confused because their home was 8,000 square feet, while the rooftop was only, right, whatever. And so we've got to teach, this is what the rooftop, this is impervious surface, this is what you're doing the math on. All right, have we got our marching orders for the next 2 weeks? We will do everything we can to get that language to you. We'll do everything we can to get our questions about the franchise fee to you. And I believe that's what we have for marching orders. Anything else that needs to be discussed?
I think we've had good discussion tonight. I wish we had more people here, but I think we had good discussion.
I think it's been great. And so if there's, again, concerns that we need to bring up, bring them up. And you guys you're thinkers, you got good ideas.
If
We'll
y'all
explore it.
got questions before next meeting, you got Darren's email address? Send him an email so that we can.
Please,
So that we
please.
can have the answer for you when we
Please.
have the next meeting.
I'll find yours.
Please.
Matt, what's your email?
It's too long. D. Gordon's.
D. Gordon With that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second.
Yep.
All in favor? It has been great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and being and participating very much.